It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
This is one, I alluded to this, it's kind of in quite a few of these other truths about money, but this is, money's a tool, it's not a goal. I think this is something people struggle with. I've done shows on the dark side of being wealthy, and people are like, wow, why is he doing shows like that? I want people to understand that when you're on this journey of trying to find financial success, creating wealth, you might have a goal that if, because we do this, it's a coping mechanism. It's just kind of like when I was 14 years old, looking at 16 as the goal that I wanted to be because I wanted to start driving a car. I thought for sure as soon as I turned 16, got my driver's license, had a beat up of a car that ladies were going to love me.
You. All it took was a driver's license.
It was a false. It was a mirage. It was nobody looked at me any different from the time I was 14 to the time I was 16. That's not what gets you dates. Is just because you have a driver's license. It's kind of the same thing with wealth creation. I think a lot of you guys are saying, look, and I see this, and I'm not trying to pick on the FIRE movement. I'm just trying to give you a calibration of your why. A lot of people will think, hey, I might be miserable in my job, but if I can save 50% of my income, when I get to be 40 and I get to do this, I'm going to be happier because just having $2 million, $5 million is going to be the why that's going to make me happy. I'm going to tell you it needs to go deeper than that. You need to know what makes you happy, like from a hobby standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. Do not neglect these type of things, because if money's your goal, just to be rich, you might find it's a lot emptier. Now, look, I understand that first $75,000 of annual income gets you to cover the basics, but the research shows the incremental difference between making $75,000 a year versus $300,000 doesn't really change your happiness. And you have to ask yourself, why is that the case? And the reason is because purpose, fulfillment, those things are a little more elusive than just straight up survival and happiness.
One thing that I would say, Brian, you and I have both noticed this personally, as well as we've noticed it with clients. If you don't have a firm grasp of your why, your goalpost will keep moving. If you say, you know what, I just want to make, if I can make $50,000 a year, then, well, you get there and you're like, oh, okay, well, no. If I could just make 75, I could hit that. Well, if I could just make it will keep on and keep on going. What you really need to do is vision. What is your goal? Is my goal to have $10 million in the bank? Well, maybe, but what's the purpose behind that? Is there a reason? Or is your goal to be able to do what you want, the way you want, when you want? Is the purpose to know what you value, why you value it, and how you're going to achieve it? I think that's a much bigger picture than just setting a monetary goal, because in my experience, that goalpost has a funny way of moving further and further out.
Well, and look, human nature, one of the great things about humans is that we have an insatiable appetite to keep expanding and growing. That's why we innovate. We do things. It's actually a blessing that we are this way. But there is a dark side to it, is that you're going to find that what you consider success when you're 25, you look forward and you say, I think if I could have this by the time I'm 50, I'll be happy. You'll find when you get to that age that you want more. That's that insatiable appetite. That's that hedonic treadmill where a house that your 25-year-old self would have said, that's a mansion. You'll get there and you'll be like, oh, it's nice, but there's something better. Somebody's always going to have more than you. I hate to, I'm sure you've heard that before, but if you're setting your goals to be the big person on your street or to be the big person in your life, I think that is going to be much emptier than you realize. So understand your why. That's why I focus so much time talking about the behavioral, the spiritual, the emotional side of money, so that you don't get blindsided by how empty it can be if you're not doing the right preparation.
One thing, one of the comments, again, we have this, if you're listening out just audibly, we have the live stream going, and this great comment just came in. It said, hey, finding that purpose for money really is the challenging part. I have a close friend, he's many years older than me, and he said to me, look, if you want to figure out how to do wealth well, think about right now the level of the standard of living you want to achieve. What's your dream house, dream car, dream scenario, dream freedom, whatever that is. Work to get to that level, but make sure that you just lock that level in, no matter where you go. So if you go further than that, if you go higher, that's fine. try to maintain that standard of living so that that house that 25-year-old thought was a mansion and you get there and you own it, you don't look at the bigger mansion. You don't look at the next thing. If you can go ahead and define that now and continue revisiting your definition of what that is, I think it's going to help you stay much more solid in the financial goals you're setting.
The financially efficient user in me, I will tell you my own journey. Here's the thing, because I love my neighbors. I have a lot of really good neighbors. I don't want to move because when I look at, because like my builder of my house, he moved to a different tier of houses after he finished our neighborhood and went up even higher. And we got to be friends because he's about my age. He invited me to build into this nicer tier neighborhood. And he put some carrots on it by who some of the people were. And I remember thinking, I bet those people don't hang out together. They're not going. They're going to want more land so that they can put fences up and
be
keep
private.
Whereas me, when I roll the trash can out, my neighbor can't help if he's because we're close enough. He can't help but have a conversation with me, and I actually cherish that.
There's something special about that.
So there is something. I will just tell you. I think that you can swim too far upstream that you actually price yourself out of enjoying it. There's private aviation, and I didn't plan on going here, but I have somebody I've once told me about private aviation is that it is a great hobby, a lot of fun, but a lot of people who get into private aviation will actually price themselves out of the hobby by buying a bigger plane that consumes more fuel, that has more maintenance, more cost. The same thing happens with cars, with houses. If you don't know your why, you're kind of floating around out there without a purpose, and that's just not going to be you're not going to be driven and turn that dream into a mapped out plan for success.